Your journey in the oil and gas industry actually starts by answering one very simple question. What is oil and gas industry? And the reason why this is an important question, and probably why you are also asking the same question, is because you want to get into the oil and gas sector. You probably want to build a career, or you want to build a business across the oil and gas value chain, and therefore taking time to learn, to understand, and to come to terms with what oil and gas industry is all about becomes the first step towards getting involved in the oil and gas sector. It might also be a question that you're asking because you are curious. You want to know what oil and gas is all about and what this industry actually is all about. You want to understand the various segments of the oil and gas sector, the various players in the sector, and how the oil and gas industry actually affects the economy and also affects your own personal life. Personally, I actually like oil and gas sector, and particularly the upstream oil and gas segment. And this is a sector that I've been involved in over the last 2 decades. And there is a lot that you can actually learn and appreciate when you take time to understand how the oil and gas industry operates, which is why in this particular video, I'm going to give you a brief overview and introduction to the oil and gas industry. And the purpose of this is to answer that particular question that you're asking yourself. But I am also hoping that this will also increase or raise your curiosity so that you can even go deeper into trying to understand the oil and gas sector. In very simple terms, the oil and gas industry is the industry that deals with exploration, production, processing and refining, marketing and distribution of petroleum products. And when you are able to understand that entire value chain, how all those different parts are interlinked and how they work together, then it becomes very easier for you to be able to see the value that the industry brings to the world. It is the source of, most primary energy for most people in the world. It actually fuels and funds the global economy. A lot of economies in the world depend on the revenues that are generated from the sale of crude oil and natural gas, among other products within the petroleum sector. And this includes very simple things as, let's say, ensuring that there is food in the market, because some of the products from, oil and gas sector, like fertilizer, helps in production of food across the world. And so while you can appreciate, some of the concerns that people have when it comes to fossil fuel, you can also not overlook the benefits that the oil and gas industry brings to the world. And I belong to the camp of people who believe that oil and gas is a net positive to the world, that it brings more to the world than it takes away, that the advantages of oil and gas industry in the world is more than the disadvantages that some people talk about. And so I'm a big proponent of continued exploration of oil and gas, continued production of oil and gas, and especially in countries that are still developing. Oil and gas can play a very big role in making the lives of the people in those countries better and also wealthier in the long term. And to further help you understand this oil and gas industry, I'd want to mention that the industry is divided into 3 sectors or 3 segments. And these are the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. And they all work together to ensure that you are able to get the petroleum products in the market, that you can be able to have, continued exploration of oil and gas in the world, as well as processing through the refineries that exist in the market today and that are continuing to be built. The upstream oil and gas sector of the oil and gas industry is the one that deals with searching, exploration, and production of crude oil and natural gas. This is the subsector of the petroleum industry that deals with getting the raw material from the ground. This is what you are looking at. And you cannot have finished petroleum products without getting it as a raw material. So the upstream oil and gas sector is an important aspect of the oil and gas value chain, and it is the one that I am particularly interested in because everything that happens once the crude oil or natural gas is out of the ground depends on how successful the upstream oil and gas industry is. And it is a big subsector in itself with a lot of moving parts, including big businesses and local businesses that supply goods and services to the upstream oil and gas value chain. And you can be part of that sector if that's something that you are interested in. The midstream oil and gas segment of the oil and gas value chain is the one that deals with moving, the crude oil and natural gas from the oil fields into a processing facility, in this case into a refinery. And a refinery or midstream sector plays a major role in turning that low product or that low crude oil and natural gas into finished products that you can use or that consumers in the market can use. And so there is a big aspect or a big role that the midstream sector plays in the oil and gas sector. It is the sort of the linkage between the upstream or the raw materials that you have in the sector with the consumer or the petroleum products that the consumer buy. The downstream segment of the oil and gas industry is the one that deals with, distribution and marketing of the finished petroleum products. And probably this is the industry that you interact with at most because this is where you are buying all the products that are derived from the oil and gas sector. Let's say you drive a car and you are going to work and you need to fuel. That interaction or that particular activity is where you're actually interacting with the downstream sector because you're probably going to a gas station or a petrol station to fuel your car. And everything else that you might need that relates to petroleum products actually is where you are dealing with the downstream sector. And again, this is a very important sector because this is where now you sort of, get whatever was produced in the upstream and processed in the midstream. This is where now you get to see the results when it is engaging with the final consumer. So as you can see, the oil and gas industry is huge. The value chain is complicated and it is complex, but that does not mean that you cannot understand it. What I have found over the years that I have been engaging in the oil and gas sector is that you need to be intentional, you need to be deliberate when it comes to learning how the oil and gas industry. There are a lot of things that I don't know, and there are a lot of things that I continue knowing, and I do believe that you're in the same area, you are in the same kind of a boat where you want to understand the oil and gas industry, and this is probably part of your research when it comes to get into the oil and gas sector. As you can see, the oil and gas industry or the entire value chain is large and can be complex. There are a lot of moving parts that are involved in the oil and gas industry. And it requires you to be intentional and deliberate when it comes to learning and understanding how the oil and gas industry works. And that's why I am excited and happy that you are here, that you have watched this video, and you are curious to want to understand more about the oil and gas industry, and probably you want to get involved either in terms of your profession or you want to do business in the oil and gas industry. Heck, you might even just be curious to know how the oil and gas industry, which I think is a step in the right direction. And if you'd want to learn more about oil and gas industry and probably the opportunities that you can be able to get in the sector, I want you to watch the videos on your screen right now. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not, and I'm going to see you in my next video.